continuing coverage of Hurricane Lili next on News 14.
Speaking for The Price is Right, a Mark Goodson television production.
The Texas State Fair, all the color and the contests you'd expect.
But let me warn you, if you enter a cake here, make sure you're not in competition with Dorothy Lacefield.
Go along with Harry Smith to meet the best little cake baker in Texas on the premiere of Travels with Harry Smith, a brand new series tonight on the CBS Evening News.
A scientific experiment goes horribly wrong.
Nobody leaves. How bad is it? It's real bad.
Now Chuck Norris must stop a deadly corporate cover-up. Walker, CBS Saturday.
Meet an artist whose inspiration is New England's great outdoors and who captures its brilliance with colors louder than dynamite. Join Charles Osgood this Sunday morning.
This is News 4 at noon with continuing coverage of Hurricane Lili.
South Florida is spared the wrath of Hurricane Lili, but Cuba not as lucky. Today, the island is being bullied by the storm, causing severe flooding and damage. Good afternoon. South Florida can relax. Hurricane Lili is no longer a direct threat to us, but it is a different story for Cuba and its next target, the Bahamas. News 4 Chief Meteorologist Brian Norcross kicks off our team coverage with the very latest information on Lili.
Ileana, Lili has made yet another turn here this noontime, and I'm not exactly sure what that means for the Bahamas, but it means Cuba is going to continue to get battered. Let's take a look at the radar. We're looking out of Key West. This is the eye of Lili. Now, we had anticipated that Lili would move northeast across the island, emerging somewhere to the east of Havana. But that has not happened. Watch as we look through the last 3 hours. Notice that Lili is moving directly to the east and maybe even a little bit of a turn to the southeast, just a little bit on the last few pictures there. Now, all the models still indicate that the storm will emerge from the Cuban mainland there and on out into the Atlantic, but this turn to the east and the southeast may be good news for Nassau. It certainly is good news for us here in southeast Florida because it's keeping this very strong feeder band here offshore, and now, as you can see, we're almost going past us here in Dade-Broward County. That's going to alleviate the threat of that very, very heavy rain coming in here. Now, some other more minor feeder bands are developing and may very well bring us some pretty good showers and thunderstorms, and some of those thunderstorms could be heavy, but not this massive rain that we had thought yesterday would indeed come over us. As we look at the Keys here, we see there's a pretty good line of showers here affecting the lower middle Keys and some more just offshore, and then some other ones just now developing, but again, we think that the heavy, heavy stuff will stay offshore. Here in the satellite picture now, you can see the rotation center right in there. Now it's getting somewhat disrupted by the mountains of central Cuba in here, and the longer it stays over the mainland, the more weakening we expect to see, although we have not seen a lot of weakening yet. It's still a very well-developed storm. But again, with Nassau, New Providence right up here, the more of an eastward movement it takes, the better it is for them. And, of course, the folks further south in the Bahamas certainly need to be concerned. So all interests in the central Bahamas need to be paying very close attention. Here are the numbers as of 11 o'clock, 22.4, 81.1, 90-mile-an-hour winds, moving to the east at 9, again, east right along the Cuban mainland there. There's the pressure, 975 millibars, 155 miles to the south-southeast of Key West. So the threat to the Keys also dramatically diminished. And still, though, with the tropical storm warning in the Keys, the possibility of some tropical storm winds and some squalls, but likely that will be dropped here later on today. Hurricane warnings in effect for all of the northern and central Bahamas, also for much of Cuba, but it looks like to me the northern Bahamas may be in better shape here. So with this turn to the east, this early turn to the east, the central Bahamas certainly some concern. Now what's happening is this very strong cold front that's driving south and the associated upper level winds They're pushing Lili to the east, and once this gets a little further south, it's going to pick up Lili and zoom it across the Bahamas. So it's going to really move fast. You folks in the Bahamas, bear that in mind right now, just coming on in. And this cold front will also bring us some storms. Joe Haynes will have more on that in a little bit. So here's where we see it. Early tomorrow, leaving the Bahamas. So you folks in the Bahamas, be ready for it. It's going to come your way in a big hurry. All right, Joe Haynes back with more in just a little bit.
Thanks, Brian. We want to remind you, if you have any questions about Hurricane Lili, Neighbors for Neighbors can help. Just give them a call at 597-4404. We're going to take you there live in about 12 minutes to hear the answers to your questions. So if you have a question or a concern, call right now. That number again, 597-4404. Of course, flooding remains a concern in South Florida. Let's go live to John Dutzman in Carroll City, which is already having to deal with high water.
I tell you what, Lili or no Lili, we cannot take any more rain here. Take a look. The water is almost up to the house over here. In fact, they said it was closer to going inside the house earlier today and last night. And I want to show you something over here, and this happens a lot in South Florida. There's a drain here. This drain is not clogged, but the water's not going anywhere. It's a drain that does not drain. That probably means the water simply has no place to go. We have some very interesting shots from Chopper 4 this morning as people were trying to get to work and go to the store. This poor woman already soaked her shoes, so she takes them off and wades knee-deep in potentially contaminated water. This car tries to cruise through the very same parking lot, but ventures into deep water and stalls. The woman battles some waves and wakes from a car as she heads to the store, but this car has had it. It has to be towed. Here, kids play in this stuff. Not a good idea. Authorities say this water could contain raw sewage and other dangerous goodies. The drive to work this morning, also dangerous. Look here, as these cars kind of behave like amphibious vehicles entering a big body of water. When you're driving this garbage, it kind of pays, I guess, to be driving in it in a garbage truck. No, this was not the place to walk this morning, not the place to drive. Best thing to do is to stay high and dry. Our lady who waded to the store eventually made it to the store. Hey, look at a live picture of a playground here. Earlier we had some kids playing in this stuff, and as we told you, that is not a very good idea. And as we were watching this drain, cannot get this on camera, but yesterday we were seeing tadpoles. Today I saw a bunch of minnows or little fish coming out of this drain. So I don't know, maybe the fish are trying to tell us something about living in South Florida. Reporting live from Carroll City, John Dutzman, News 4 South Florida.
You know what, John? We could see them. Thanks. The damage, of course, much worse in Cuba, where, as Brian just showed us, Lili is bearing down right now. We're getting more pictures off the satellites out of Cuba today, so let's go to News 4's Lisette Campos with the latest. She's live from our news partners at CBS Telenoticias.
Ileana, the information from Cuba continues to come in right now. The beaches of Varadero are being pounded by the eye of the storm. Since 8 a.m. this morning, Cuba has been feeling the brunt of Hurricane Lili. The sustained winds have been reported at almost 90 miles per hour. We've got some video to show you with wind gusts of up to 115 miles per hour. In Havana, specifically in the downtown neighborhoods known as the Habana Vieja, there are reports of several buildings collapsing. The Cuba's Civil Defense is reporting that a total of 86,000 Havana residents live in structures that could easily collapse during this hurricane. The torrential rain started in Cuba about 2 a.m. yesterday, causing plenty of flooding, and in the western province of Pinal del Rio, flash floods and mudslides are expected. We want to show you some footage that we've just received from Costa Rica. The authorities there are saying that 1 child and 2 adults have drowned in the floods caused by the hurricane. The rivers have overflooded into some neighborhoods and made many of the bridges in Costa Rica impassable. Thousands of people there are now homeless, and the death toll is expected to climb. Right now, the authorities are investigating 5 drownings that were reported on Tuesday, and they are trying to determine if those 5 drownings are also related to Lili. As soon as we get more information or more pictures, we're waiting for them to come in the satellite room over there. We'll bring them to you. Live in Hialeah, I'm Lisette Campos, News 4, South Florida.
Thanks, Lisette. On this very day in 1944, Cuba had a deadly hurricane. Let's hope it doesn't get that bad this time. The severe flooding in South Florida is putting a damper on some big weekend events. News 4's Leif Peterson joins us from the news desk with that.
Ileana, we've been working the phones, and one of the biggest cancellations we were hearing about is, yes, it's that time of the year, Oktoberfest. It was supposed to be happening